worship will also preserve what is other than it. And because the prayer is a preventer from wrongdoing. So the prayer, once a person gets into the habit of the prayer, then the prayer becomes a prevention from a person falling into sin. In accordance to the statement of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, Inna salata tanha anil fahashai wal munkar. That Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentions that indeed the prayer, that it is a preventer. That it is something that prevents from fahasha, from those lewd acts, such as illegal sexual intercourse and fornication. And it prevents from wrongdoing. This is what the salah does, the prayer. So the prayer has been specified by the Messenger of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. But however, it is not the only thing that you discipline your children for. For indeed the salah will prevent from lewd acts and from wrongdoing. So the prayer is not obligatory upon the child for himself, but it is obligatory upon the parents to obligate the children. Because the prayer becomes obligatory upon the child. And the youth must know this. And the parents should not become lackadaisical with this. Because the prayer becomes obligatory upon the child when three matters occur, or one of three matters occur, or whichever of these three matters occurs first. From them is the night emissions, due to the sexual development of the child. So he has night emissions, or emission of sperm, or due to pubic hair upon the private areas, or that he reaches the age of 15. Whichever one of these three occurs first, in the boy or the girl, then the obligations of the Sharia become incumbent upon him or her, with the addition for the girl that if she menstruates, then that is also a sign that she has entered into puberty. So we find some of our parents, some of the parents in this community or outside of this community, that we find them becoming lackadaisical in commanding their children to pray at the age of 7. So then they become even more lackadaisical in the other affairs of discipline. And then on top of that, even when the child reaches the age of puberty, clearly the child is in the age of pubescence, that the child is adolescent now. That when the child is commanded to pray, go and pray, it's obligatory upon you now, not obligatory from me, obligatory from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And the parents will say, leave him alone, he's still young. He's still 16, 15, 17, 18. Even though they've reached the age of puberty. So what is worse is that even when Allah obligates the child to pray, the parents do not encourage the child. They still think that he's young, still treating him as if he was a 7 or 8 year old. This is not the way that the Salaf used to give tarbiyah to their children. And this is not the way that they used to cultivate their children. So guide your children and cultivate them. And direct your children with a sound guiding. Send them to the circles of knowledge. Teach them the Islamic tarbiyah or the tarbiyah Islamiyah, the Islamic cultivation and education. So that your children themselves have a love and desire for the deen of Allah. And they love Allah. And they know that which Allah has prepared for them in the gardens of paradise in Jannah. And likewise you yourselves become good examples for your children. So that your children look at you and they wish to emulate you. I want to be like my father. Or the sisters or the girl says, I want to be like my mother. Because they are good people with good mannerisms and good etiquette. And if you become a bad example for your children, then your children will follow you in that error and in that bad example. So be good examples yourselves. Don't sit in front of the television with your children. And you're watching soap operas and movies in front of your children. And then you want to beat your children when your child goes and becomes mischievous. Why? Because you yourself have set a bad example. So be good examples. If you're listening to music and then you want to discipline your child when your child does something wrong, what kind of example are you then? When you yourselves are falling into error? Or is it the case, do as I say and not as I do? So then the child sees from you this hypocrisy in action. That you say one thing and you do another thing. Don't be those types of examples for your children. Rather raise your children upon good conduct, with good piety, with mannerisms, and so on and so forth. So Shaykh al-Fawzan continues to say, so rectify your homes and purify them from all the means that lead to evil, until your homes become purified. Throw out of your house that which you know is haram. Throw out of your house. If you have a TV and you're sitting there watching the terrestrial channels, and you're sitting there watching the satellite channels, and you're sitting there and your child is next to you, then you know that that has become a wasila for the misguidance of yourself and the misguidance of your child. Because the majority of what is upon these terrestrial channels, and the majority of what is broadcast along the cables and along the satellites, is nothing but evil. The majority of what is broadcast. In fact, to the extent that out of the 100%, maybe you'll find 5% or 10% that is of any benefit. And it is close to impossible to control those affairs. So if you know that that is something that is going on in your house, with your children present, then what kind of guidance do you expect for your children? What kind of example are you setting for your children? So when your child grows up at the age of 20, 21, and he becomes involved in it, someone tells him, Akhi, take that out. He said, no, my father used to watch it. And my father was Salafi. My mother used to watch it, and she was Salafiyah. And she was a Salafi woman. No. Let us not be bad examples for our children. With regard to music, with regard to television, with regard to cinemas, and theatres, and the internet, and all of these matters Shaykh Al-Fawzan mentions. And likewise the shawari, the streets. Likewise the streets. That you don't leave your children to the streets, that they become prey to the people of the streets. Don't enter these things into your homes that will deviate and corrupt your children. For indeed the fathers and the parents carry a responsibility of trust for their children. If you give up this responsibility and cease to educate them and to cultivate them and to rightly direct your children, then you will be the cause of your children going astray, and you will be asked and brought to account regarding it. So if they are left to do as they please, and they are left to their desires, you just plonk them in front of the television. Khalas, the television is the babysitter for my child, because I can't be bothered. Or you become an absent parent. You're in the house but you're absent. You're either absent-minded because you don't care, you're upstairs doing your thing, your son's downstairs doing his thing. Your son's downstairs on the internet doing what he pleases, and you're upstairs, doing whatever you're doing. Reading or whatever, on the internet, computer in your room, and he's downstairs on the internet and the computer with his computer. You have no control. You're present, but you're absent. Or that you're absent completely from the home. Like those fathers who spend most of their time out of the house. And the only time they come into the house is they come in the home in the evening or in the night time. So they don't see their children. So then the only thing that they see of their children is a portion of their behavior. Or even less than that. So they don't cultivate them. They don't educate them. They're not there as examples for them. And then they wonder what's happened.